Well, one of the natural ways to summarize data in Excel is to use functions. I'm not just talking about the sum function, I'm talking about more powerful functions like the SUMIF function that allows us to conditionally calculate. Let's open the next project file. Open the SUMIF file. Now this is a simple data set with region, product, date, quantity, unit price, unit cost, revenue, and cost. And we want to be able to create some conditional sums of this data. I'll hit the end down key to go down to the end of my data set, and we'll see that we have 45 rows of data plus a heading for row 46. If I'd like to build a table underneath this data set with total revenue for each region, Central, East, and West. Let me arrow down a little bit, and you'll see that we have the beginning of this table already built. Select cell C49 where we'll build a SUMIF function in order to summarize data for just the East region. The function that we want to use is the SUMIF function, so every formula in Excel has to start with the equal sign. Type the equal sign and type SUMIF, and you'll see that new in Excel 2007, the autocomplete gives us a list of all the functions that start with SUMIF. In this case, we want to use the original SUMIF function. Later on in this lesson, we'll learn about the new SUMIFS function. Type the opening parentheses, and Excel tells us that first, we want to look through a particular range. And so that's the range in our data set that contains the regions. In this case, that would be A2 through A46. I'm going to select that by first clicking on A46 and then using the Shift and up to select the range. A2 to A46. Now I want to make sure that as I copy this formula later, I always point to A2 to A46. So I'm going to hit the F4 key to make that an absolute reference. You'll see that Excel adds the dollar signs in. Type the comma, and next Excel says that we're looking for the criteria. The criteria is what value we're trying to match in our region field. That field is immediately to the left of where I'm entering the formula, so I'll use the left arrow key to highlight cell B49. As I copy this formula down, I want to allow this reference to point to B50 and B51, so no dollar signs here. Type a comma, and Excel says that we now need the sum range. The sum range has to be the exact same shape as the first argument, and it should be the column that you're trying to sum. In our case, that's the revenue column over in column G, so I want to select from G2 to G46. I'll click on G2, use the Shift and up key, making sure to point to G2 to G46, and finally hitting the F4 key to make that be an absolute reference. Type the closing parenthesis, Control Enter, and we'll see that our formula totals just the East region, 273,202. Now, if we've done our job right, we should be able to copy this formula down to the next two rows, and it will calculate the total for the Central region and the West region. Fast way to copy the formula, of course, is to double-click the fill handle, scroll down a little bit, and we'll see that sure enough, we have our totals for Central, East, and West. Now, it'd be good at this point to make sure that we have all of our regions, that nothing's misspelled. If you notice that we've selected 3 cells, we can look down in the status bar in the lower right-hand corner and see the sum of those cells is 530,746. If I select all the cells in the revenue column, I should have the exact same total. I'll click on G46, again, Shift and up, and sure enough, in the lower right-hand corner, the sum of those cells is 530,746. I start to have a pretty good feeling that my SUMIF function is working, and I've captured all of the revenue in the table. Now, let's say that we want to edit this table, and instead of revenue summary by region, we want to create a revenue summary by product. I'll copy my formula down from C49 to C54, Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste. Of course, we get completely the wrong answer because there are no regions that say ABC. We're going to have to edit this formula to look at a different criteria range. The F2 key will allow us to edit the formula, and I'm going to edit to change the A's, which is the region column, to B's, which is the product column. I still want to look at the product in B54, and I still want to sum the revenue in G2 to G46. Control Enter to accept that formula. Looks like it worked. If I double-click the fill handle and copy down, again, I now have these 3 cells selected. Let's look in the status bar, and sure enough, 530,746. So we feel pretty good that this SUMIF is working. One of the very popular questions at MrExcel.com at the message board is how to do this very topic. And we explain to people how to use the SUMIF function. There's also a COUNTIF function that allows you to count records that match criteria, and people are generally thrilled with the result. But invariably, they come back a couple of days later and say, hey, this is really great, but now I need to create a table that sums revenue by region and product. Let me scroll down. They're trying to fill this table in. Well, this is where SUMIF could not do the job. They thought the sum if is so easy to understand, certainly there must be a way to do two conditions. But in Excel 2003, there was no good way to do this. Luckily, in Excel 2007, we have a great new function that will allow us to handle this problem.